Hi everyone. I just picked up a new sample library from Rigid Audio, a company I've really been enjoying the releases from recently. And one of the first things I noticed that when I was going through this is kind of a lack of documentation and kind of sparse tooltips. And I just wanted to show everyone some of the ins and outs that I've kind of discovered, like literally over the last 20 minutes that I've been playing with it. It's not necessarily the most intuitive right out of the gate, but once you kind of pick it apart, it's pretty well laid out. So you can check out their patch walkthrough for a sample. So I'll link to that. This video will not be that. It's just going to be info about some of the controls and stuff like that. I'll link their own patch sample in the description. So we're going to work with this one patch here called Evolvia. I'm actually going to collapse this. All right, so we're only seeing this one. And I'm going to play it back a little bit so you can hear what it sounds like. Actually, you know what? Let's initialize it. So this is out of the gate. All right, so a great sounding patch, really dark, really usable, kind of right out of the gate. I want to address some of the things you're seeing moving and flashing here first, since that is kind of the meat of what this library is doing. So right up top here, you see this little meter filling up. That is based on time, and that is relevant to the on-off switch. If that is off, that is not moving, and our control here becomes static. We'll talk about what those are. And the record button, which allows us to re-record this new motion. Okay, we'll do one of those in a second. Speed, this little slider down here, adjusts how fast it is going to play back. Okay, so you can slow that down, or you can speed it up. It becomes more jittery. Retrigger, RTG down here, sets whether or not it's going to start over at its position on a new key hit, or if it's going to keep up the consistent motion and just pick up your key hit from wherever it is in its motion path. And clear, of course, is going to clear all that stuff. All right, now let's hit what all these controls here are about. The first two I'm going to go kind of a little bit backwards. Detune and transpose are kind of standard stuff. Like transpose is just going to go by half step. You get the idea. And of course that, once again, let's do a record. You get the idea, okay? So detune is going to play back a couple different voices at different tunings, and it can warble the tuning in between. Now, if you're not familiar with Granular Tools, there are a couple of common threads which these other controls over here relate to. So what granular synthesis does is it takes a sample and it combs back and forth over tiny, what they call grains. Okay, so it might just be a few samples worth, and you can adjust that length. Now, this is from what I've gathered, so forgive me, developer, if I'm wrong, but it seems to have been consistent with my findings. Flux is how much of the sample is being played back from point A to B, going back and forth. Spray is how much jitter outside of that defined flux range there is. Smooth is how much fading there is on each of the grains, so it can kind of sound either chunkier or a little bit, for lack of a better word, smoother. You'll hear like a little bit more grittiness, and you'll actually kind of hear the grains shifting around with a low smoothing value. And you crank that up, and it'll be a little bit more cross-faded and a little bit more kind of blended. And shift is the overall location of where this is all occurring. Okay, so I'm going to actually open up the wrench up here. Okay, and when I play back, now the bummer is that I can't change the tools and you can't see it in real time, but if you look at this sample down here, okay, you can see the flux. Okay, the flux is kind of jumping back and forth, and then it jitters outside of that range. Now look, if I take my shift, I'm going to turn this off just so we can kind of tell where it is. I'm going to put it all the way down here. This should be back at the beginning of the sample, close to it. Or the end. Let's see. Let's shift that. See where it goes. Okay, so this is kind of reversed. Okay, so now flux, I'm going to do a little bit larger. And you can see it's a little bit jumpier. It has a wider range of playback. Spray, this should jitter a little bit more outside of that defined range. A lot. You can see it's jumping all over the place. Let's go ahead, and I don't need to go back into the tool for this, but you can plainly hear that. Okay, so I'm going to actually go back here, and I'm going to reinitialize that patch. Okay, great. So the effects down here are pretty straight ahead. Filter, low pass filter, flanger, phaser, delay, and reverb. But there's a little bonus up here that I didn't talk about when I talked about these knobs. This effect here actually can control any of these parameters. Okay, now it was a little confusing at first. I didn't open this menu down here, so I didn't see it. But if you see target, you can see all the things that it's affecting. Okay, so let's see if I wanted to do phaser depth. Okay, and it's now actually controlling the phaser depth as well. Let's add in another. So it's now totally chaotic, and it's changing all these different parameters. And of course, the same exact things apply to this knob. I can record the speed on that. I can record the motion, make it jump around, make it smoother, whatever I want to do. Now, one of the last little bonuses here is the settings lock up here. Say I've tuned in some stuff that I really want to check out, and I just kind of want to scan through the different samples. If I hit the settings lock and I change my, you can see that the bottom effects are actually still staying the same, but I now have a different sample that I'm working with. So really, really cool unit. Like I said, I'm not going to go through all of the patches, but I would head on over to Rigid Audio and grab this. It's actually $5 right now as the introductory price, and you are definitely going to spend $5 on something way dumber this week, probably even this hour. So if you are into Contact, if you're into kind of sound design or cinematic stuff, it's really great. Rigid Audio does some really, really great stuff. So please go check it out, and hopefully this kind of helps you jump in with both feet and start tweaking the controls. Enjoy, everybody. Bye.